It is now my great honor to introduce our commencement speaker, who might be melting. I don't know. You've been right in the sun. Okay. Jessica O. Matthews. Jessica O. Matthews is the co-founder and CEO of Unchartered Power, a company that famously invented the socket, which is a soccer ball that can be used as a portable power generator. Jessica also graduated from Harvard College and the Harvard Business School. But what excites me most about Jessica here as our commencement speaker this particular year is not just her impressive resume and the exciting accomplishments she's already had, but also her commitment to sense of place. In this year, place and place-based efforts have become really in vogue as communities across the country figured out how to look inward to respond to COVID-19. But for Jessica and for Vassar, a commitment to place existed long before the COVID-19 pandemic. Jessica is a Poughkeepsie native. While Jessica has traveled around the world on behalf of her company, Unchartered Power, she's never forgotten her roots in Poughkeepsie. In fact, she recently acquired a manufacturing facility for her company right here in Poughkeepsie on the corner of Church and Market Streets. Maybe there'll be some internships there someday. Okay, she hasn't committed. What's more, Jessica and her company have recently launched a pilot program in the city of Poughkeepsie that focuses on making the city's infrastructure smart and sustainable. And given her extensive work in Nigeria, she brings Poughkeepsie a unique local perspective and brings it to our local realities. At Vassar, we teach our students to go to the source. And by returning to that place that groomed her as a thinker and an inventor, Jessica has done just that. Please join me in a warm welcome to our commencement speaker, Jessica O. Matthews. Thank you so much.
Y'all call this Sunset Hill. I think it's more like Sunburn Hill. It's so hot. I don't know. Y'all didn't tell me about this, West. Y'all don't tell me this is what I'm gonna be like. I don't know if I would have said yes. So anyway, I'm literally almost delirious out here. It's so hot. So I don't really know what you're gonna get. I had a really nice, water ain't gonna do it, Betsy. It ain't water. Y'all, I'm barely used to wearing pants for meetings. Y'all have me out here in heels and a gown trying to say something now. So, so let's go. Let's see. I have no idea how this is gonna end, but fingers crossed. First of all, thank you. I think it is an amazing honor to be part of this moment that launches you into your next phase of life. Thank you to the graduates. Thank you to the faculty. Thank you to Betsy for considering me worthy to share a few things with you. First to start, because it really is that hot. Whatever you need to do to feel like you can sit through the next 15 minutes, I'm gonna give you 10 seconds to do it. So those of you right now, especially who are trying to sit all cute and pert, I call it Jess spreading. Do what you need to do. Get the air, all right? There's no shame in your game right now, because again, when you get through a pandemic, there's some things that you're like, you know what? I'm not gonna do this. So just do what you need to do. You need to stand up and do a full Go ahead. There's nothing. Sorry, parents. Yeah, you probably didn't know they chose me for this, did you? All right, so it's too hot for pomp and circumstance, so let's just get to the circumstance. When I was reflecting on my graduation 11 years ago and thinking about what I would want to hear and not hear, I think very quickly I knew that this speech would not be about how you graduated and made it through a pandemic and how resilient you must be. Because let's just face it, we all barely made through. We have no idea what the psychological toil will be. We're all, hanging on, and in 5 years, if we all just start biting trees, who knows? Who knows, right? And I knew this speech also wasn't going to be about how you're the generation, right? This is the class that can shape the world in the way that you want it. This is the generation that's going to, fix climate change, fix racial injustice, fix all these different things. Not to say that, you won't be. You kind of have to be because, let's face it, we're running out of time. But I get this sense, right, that there's almost like this overwhelming responsibility because we're running out of time. And by the way, I'm a millennial. I did not up the planet. I got it up. It wasn't me. Anyway, we can talk later about what millennials did and did not do, but yes, we are relying on you. We have about 5 years. But it's unfortunate though, right? I think that you are in this situation where people are saying there's all these things that you can do, that you should do, that the world is now yours for the making. Because oftentimes the result is usually one or two things, right? Kind of total helplessness and hopelessness, and you kind of just totally disengage. Or you overplan, you overthink, you have incredible anxiety. And the reality is, this pandemic has taught us a lot, though. And I think one of those things, for sure, is that plans are bull. Let's face it, right? Come on, yeah. Plans are utter bull. I plan to look much cuter today than I probably do now. Plans are bull. We all had plans. Probably all had plans in 2017 and 2018 and 2019. And then 2020 hit, and here we are. Maybe you have plans for your next 5 years. Maybe you don't. But, I think it goes beyond just the pandemic and the realization that plans don't mean much. In fact, I think the reality is that the last thing you want to do right now is plan, truthfully and honestly. Because if you're not careful, you're gonna have a plan that actually gets in the way of your destiny. Let me give you a couple of examples. So I'm a dual citizen of Nigeria and the United States. Both of my parents, any Nigerians in the audience? Exactly. Naija no de carry lasto. Okay. My parents are both from the same state in Nigeria, Edo State, both from the same tribe, the Ishan tribe. There's almost 200 tribes in Nigeria. Ask me, though, where they met. Not in Nigeria, in Brooklyn. Was it the plan? No, but it happened. Where did they have me? Not in Brooklyn, in Vassar Hospital, around the way. Not necessarily a plan, but here we are. And as a result, when I went to Our Lady of Lourdes High School, I found out how to easily break onto campus here and go to the parties. Was it the plan? No. Did it happen? Yes. Security's like, I remember you now. So let's say, what is this speech actually then going to be about? For me, I think it's about happiness. Because the only thing you really need to work on for the rest of your life is making sure that when you take your last breath, that you feel good about all the stuff that you did before that. That you're happy, that you feel fulfilled. And one of the ways that you do that is by not so much having a plan, but having a rubric, an approach to your career, an approach to the things that you spend your time doing, because time truly is the most valuable asset you have. And so all I can do really is speak from my own experiences. And so I'll tell you 2 to 2.5 stories, all depends on how hot I get. And hopefully it'll help. And yes, there will be some internships if you guys, after the speech, decide that your non-plan brings you to wanting to be paid. And I'm saying somewhere, I find that usually is a specific part So first, I'll share a little bit about myself. When I was graduating 11 years ago, I thought I was going to be working at an applied psychology think tank. I wrote for the school newspaper. I studied psychology and economics. I mean, I'm a black woman, so young black woman, so I definitely never thought I'd be doing what I do now. But yet, here I stand as the founder and CEO of an infrastructure technology company that has deployed technologies that Google wishes they could, right? Yes, I said it. That's worked around the world to figure out what it really takes to make sure every single person on this planet has access to sustainable, reliable infrastructure services, ranging from power to internet, to all the things that I never thought I would understand. Like, it's crazy. It's just crazy what you can Google. I basically have a PhD in Google. It's crazy. And I've been really happy all along the way. Truly, truly. I know some people might tell you, oh, the best time in your life is college. No, it really isn't. The best time in your life is around like 25 to like, cause you can rent a car and you like have a little bit of money and your parents aren't like, what are you doing? And so you can go and do whatever. It's great. So just don't even worry about it. Yes. So how did it work out though, right? How did I go from applied psychology to running a heavy tech infrastructure company? So there's a lot of different ways to slice this, but I think really there's 3 things you can keep in mind when you start to apply your rubric, right? Think about a rubric for the next 5, 10, 15 years without having a plan. The first thing is make it personal. I did not get into the world of energy and infrastructure because of some spreadsheet analysis or sort of desktop research or someone saying this is the market that needs to be addressed. I got into it because my family needed it. And the first step, truly, to understanding what you should be doing with your time, regardless of plan, is making sure that it fits in with all the things that you actually care about. When I say lean in, right? When you think about intersectionality, don't just think about your gender or your race or your religion. Think about every single thing that makes you you. And at the nexus point of all those things, if you look hard enough, you will find the thing that's worth doing for your entire life. I'll give you an example. So as I mentioned, I'm a dual citizen of Nigeria and the United States. I actually just got back from Nigeria like 3 days ago. Funny thing about Nigeria, despite it being an incredibly amazing place, you know, with so many young people who are excited to grow, the reality of the situation is that we do not have access to reliable power infrastructure there. Similar to many places in the global south, to be frank, similar to what's going on in Texas and the United States as well more recently. I remembered traveling to Nigeria every single year, and without fail, we would lose power several times a day, every single day. And for me, this all really came to a head when I was 17 years old. I was in Nigeria for my aunt's wedding, and I recalled actually just being in the room when the power went out. We expected it. And we brought a diesel generator in just to attempt to keep the festivities going. And I remembered that despite being used to it, this time the fumes were really bothering me. And so I turned to my cousins, who were in their 20s at the time, young men who should view the whole world as their oyster, all of them trained engineers because #Nigerians. And I remember there was something that they said to me that really, I think, was the first part of pushing me down this path of having a very personal career. They said, don't worry, you'll get used to it. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. And I remembered thinking, get used to what exactly? We know that this is horrible for the environment. We know that this is killing us. In fact, living with a diesel generator or kerosene lamp is like smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And yet what you're telling me is that you can't imagine any public-private partnership, any type of innovation that could make this better. What you're telling me is that the best way to solve this problem is to pretend like I don't have one and get used to it. Now, that did not sit right with me. I like to tell people that it is my dream to be the love child of Beyonce and Bill Nye the Science Guy. But back then, I was way more Bill Nye. Beyonce takes work. That works hard. And so at the time, I was like, what do you mean? How could this be? I didn't know what to do with that feeling of unrest, but I knew something was wrong. I came back to Poughkeepsie to finish my senior year, and you know, sometimes bad things, they just happen in threes. And that year, I actually lost 3 members of my family, all in Nigeria, all on the same side of family with those cousins. I lost my aunt, who was younger than I am now. I lost my uncle, my cousin's father, and I lost my grandfather, all from things that could have either been at least delayed, if not totally avoided, if they had access to basic things that we take for granted. No one asks what happens when you go to the hospital and the power goes out. No one wonders, right, how you kind of extend and have just these basic things like clean water when you really need them in these situations, and then what happens. And I think what really messed with me at the time, I'm just gonna bring this fan on, woo, it wasn't just the sadness of my mother's face and my family's faces and knowing that we were dealing with incredible loss all just back to back in 1 year. It was the fact that I knew that when they took their last breath, they thought the same things that my cousins thought, that this was life, that this was just what it's gonna have to be and they should just get used to it, and that I could not stand for. And I knew I would have to do something. I had no idea where to begin, but I knew that this was something that I would dedicate my life to. Now, the result was me first assuming that the issue was one of inspiration and inventing the product that President Bradley mentioned, the energy-generating soccer ball. And even that came from just leaning into all the things that I knew and I saw, the observations of spending time in Nigeria. Because one thing I knew was that soccer was the most popular sport in the world, and especially in Nigeria. One thing I knew is that my cousins, yes, they would say, just get used to it, but when they were playing soccer, or football, as they would call it, my cousins, despite being incredibly below average at sports, would make insane statements about what they could do when they were playing soccer. 9 out of 10 times they couldn't do it, but every 1 out of 10 times they actually did. And so the concept of taking that passion, of taking that hope, and applying it to the world that they were in so they would actually realize that maybe they didn't just have to take it and deal with it, pretend like it's not happening. That was the idea. That's how I started. So I was actually 19 years old when the first prototype of the socket was built. And I literally just went to the local pharmacy, grocery store, took a shake-to-charge flashlight, put it inside of a hamster ball, rolled it around. I was still on campus, and said, look, you can play soccer and get power, and you wouldn't need a kerosene lamp. And that's how I got into the space. That is what launched my career, just by making it personal. And I'll tell you one last thing. You know, this wasn't just something that happened once and then you're on the right path. You should be prepared to think through not planning almost as intensely as you would the plan. Making it personal helps you find out what you should be doing. But then to continue to stay on the right path, the second thing you want to keep in mind is that you really don't have to be the best person to do something. You just have to make sure you're not the worst. Let me tell you another story. So I always knew the problem was infrastructural, but I was afraid. Incredibly afraid to do infrastructure because the average age of a person working in energy, in anywhere, any case, is 55. They're usually a cis, white male, and all of those things I am not. And so it just seemed like maybe we could just inspire the right people to do infrastructure. Inspire my cousins, inspire anyone else, but not me. I kept on thinking there were simply better people to do it. Until really 2 things happened. First, it was the election of 2016. Now I'm gonna say something kind of crazy to you. But the most inspirational thing that ever happened to me was Donald Trump being elected president. Yes, I said it. Please pick your sweaty jaw up, yes. Donald Trump, to me, was an incredible inspiration because, again, I knew infrastructure was the solution, but at the time I was afraid, and so we kept on making energy-generating play products. When Donald Trump was elected, I could barely get out of bed, let alone go and talk to my team who, again, we were in sustainable, renewable energy, so we all lost our shit. Like, people were like ripping their clothes off, like we couldn't believe he won. And I had to figure out what to say. And so I walked in to the office the next morning and I said, team, we need to see this as a good thing. I've done my research on this Trump guy. And the reality is, this man has no damn business even running for president. And yet he did, and here we are. And so let us ask ourselves this. We spend so much time saying that other people should be building infrastructure. We're a diverse, young team. We shouldn't be the ones building infrastructure. But all of this time that we're spending sidelining ourselves, people who have no damn business building infrastructure are building it. And that's why we're in this situation. So what if we attempt to be like Donald? I actually literally would tell my team, let's dream like a white man, but like, you know what I mean. And I called myself Chad, that's my white man name. And I'd be, no, like, I'm just keeping it real. And I was like, listen guys, we can do this. We're not the worst people possible to do this. We need to stop acting like we need to be some unrealistic best type of person. And so we started to build. We started to apply some of our patents to a platform that would actually take this from consumer goods to giving people power in real infrastructure. And so, of course, what happened? We started to research and look at what other companies were doing as well. We connected with the foremost academic leader in kinetic energy out of Virginia Tech University, flew him up to Harlem, said, come and see what we're doing. He came, he looked around, he saw that my lead mechanical engineer was a woman who was younger than me, sat down in my office and said, Jessica, you know, I can tell that you guys are good at the branding, you guys have some cool things going on here, but you should let me and my guys at Virginia Tech partner with you and just handle all the technology. We have the equipment, we have the experience, we know what to do. And I remember telling him, you know, that's not why we brought you up here. We didn't bring you up here so that you would sideline us. Because that's the thing, right? It's what you believe you can do and what other people believe you can do. And so the first thing is that you need to believe in yourself. You need to just know that you're not gonna be the worst person to try it. You just can't. You can't graduate from Vassar and be the worst person to try something. But then you have to know that people are going to look at you and say, oh, well, I don't think you match the mold. So what did we do? We said, okay, no problem, bye. And we hustled. And we pushed. 3 months later, I gave him a call. We had 5x'd the numbers that his entire team for the last 4 years and all their fancy equipment could do in our Harlem brownstone. It was super steampunky. We we had figured out how to generate a kilowatt of power just from having a car drive over a speed bump. And that professor ended up asking for a job, which I denied, but then joining our advisory board and becoming one of our biggest proponents and saying, yeah, I was wrong. And I was like, yes, you were. So again, not the plan at all, to say the least. But just like that, we went from energy generating soccer balls to energy generating speed bumps. So let me close with the one last, I think, piece of this, right? So how do you have a strategy for not having a plan? Make it personal. Remember that you don't have to be the best to try something. You just try not to be the worst. And finally, do the hard thing. When in doubt, do the hard thing. I remembered back in 2018 when we had built this energy generating speed bump and we're in a position to start selling it and scaling it. And it became very, very clear that while it was an incredibly cool thing, it wasn't the right thing that cities needed. Now, of course, my investors just wanted me to push along, sell the speed bumps, get it everywhere. But I realized that there was a bigger problem. That regardless of the speed bump, if the grid was broken, then regardless of what we did, this wouldn't be something that really scaled. Think about all the things you read about in Popular Mechanics and Wired, and you're like, that sounds cool. Then how come we're still using this? And so I had to think about what my true north was. The easy thing would have been just to sell speed bumps here and there, get my flowers, keep it moving, sell the company. But I thought about my family in Nigeria. I thought about what they were going through still today. And I knew that I would not be able to just settle with something that was cool if it didn't have the impact that I needed to do right by them. And so I went to the team and I said, we have to halt development on the speed bump. They all kind of looked at me with that like, this done lost her damn mind kind of face, you know. And I said, listen, guys, there's a bigger problem here. This isn't just about one singular solution. There's an issue with how infrastructure is being built in general. There's an issue with something that even the biggest utilities haven't addressed. There's a reason why PG&E is just letting people die. And that's the problem that we need to solve, or we're just going to be something kitschy in the corner. And so we pulled back. And we spent about a year digging, talking to people, to CEOs and chairmen of utilities, to heads of different infrastructure companies. My investors were so upset, and I literally was just like dodging calls. And what we realized was that what we had to do was so much bigger than power. What we had to do was develop a platform that would be like the Netflix to the utilities blockbuster. What we would have to do is go beyond just the ground and just generating energy. We'd have to think about how to transform the built environment into a data center that could handle all the information that would be needed to ensure that every single person had access to cost-effective infrastructure. And we would have to convince, again, a whole world of people that had been trying to do this that we should be the people to do it. Now, of course, what ended up happening is that it worked. In 2018, we filed the necessary IP, one of them being a patent on protocols for communication, which I won't get into the tech, but the main thing of it is let's face it, there are a lot of men in infrastructure. Communication isn't always the heteronormative man's skill set. And as it turns out, a lot of our problems in technology are because they don't talk to each other. So we applied that, brought our unique perspective, came up with something massive, got funding from David Siegel, the foremost hedge fund and data scientist in the world. And then, of course, when it came down to where we would deploy this, because making it personal means making it better for me, I really had two options, Nigeria and Poughkeepsie. 2020 came, travel was impossible, and so we launched in Poughkeepsie. And just like that, actually just earlier this year, we were able to show the world that we could actually deploy this technology into the built environment, that we could actually deliver low-cost, smart infrastructure services, better water, better power, better internet, right on the street in Poughkeepsie. And now, if you guys stay around, you'll see some pretty fancy people coming around just to see this and what we've done. People who have seen so many companies try, but only Uncharted could make it happen. And so, again, what do I hope this kind of lands? How does this land for you? One, don't worry about what you learned here in school. Just get really good at Googling. Two, focus on winning the hour. Once you know what you should be spending your time doing, just try to make the best use of that hour. You want enough hours in the day, enough days in the week, enough weeks in the month, enough months in the year, and all of a sudden, you're on to the start of an impactful lifetime. And finally, again, given everything that you've been through and all that you will still have to go through, remember that you don't need a plan. You do not need a plan. I stand here before you with people like Magic Johnson on my board, feedback and advice, and actually working for people like Bill Clinton, Bill Gates before he became kind of shady. I was born at Vassar Hospital. I don't even like Silicon Valley. And yet here we are because I did not have a plan. And so on this very, very hot day, the last thing I'll leave with you again is no matter what you do, remember that just because it's not your plan doesn't mean it's not your destiny. Thank you.